Dave Kerpen, serial entrepreneur, New York Times best-selling author. It is truly a treat. Co-founder of Likeable Media. Dave Kerpen, what are your thoughts on what you're hearing right now, especially out of San Francisco?
Well, of course, I'm saddened to hear about the attack on the Cash App creator. It's very, very, very sad, and I'm always saddened to hear about what you've been through, Jonathan. You and I go way back, and you're an excellent journalist. And I hate to see you as a victim here. In New York, where I live, we've definitely seen an uptick in crime in the city, poverty. I mean, I'm definitely no expert on this topic, but in my experience, the pandemic exacerbated the disparity in wealth, and poor folks are turning to crime. I mean, that story is not a new story, so we've seen that over and over again. And when people are poor, they end up turning to crime, and it's a difficult cycle. And I certainly don't have the answers to it, but I think cities have some challenging times ahead.
So look, you're an entrepreneur. You're successful by all accounts. How do you operate in this type of environment then, just as an entrepreneur, right? You're still in your New York City. You know, that's your urban core. You have to deal with this. We're seeing all the attacks on the subways as well, Dave, right? I mean, everyone's reporting on that. This stuff is happening. How do you function? How do you run a business like this?
Well, at the risk of being short, I don't take the subway. I focus on, first and foremost, keeping my family safe, and keeping me safe. And we this is perhaps another topic, but we've made our businesses essentially work from home for the most part, and that's where people feel safest, and that's certainly fine by me.
It's a good point, Dave. And for those people who don't know Dave's background, I mean, he's a real, true social media expert. And there's been such a transition. I think you brought up the pandemic. I think social media has also caused some of these changes in our society, the way people react to things. So Dave was at the forefront of Facebook and that revolution that Facebook set in now. That might be old tech for some of our viewers and listeners now, obviously for those people that are on TikTok and some of these newer technologies. But Dave, connect, going back to that era, you were one of the first folks to embrace Facebook as it was really starting to go nuclear viral across the globe. And where we are today, like a decade later with social media, with TikTok, with Twitter, we've had this kind of change. Give us your thoughts on just social media over the years and where we are now.
Well, things change relatively quickly. It's funny because you were I saw in the show notes we were talking about what's going on with TikTok, and of course there are some folks that are saying there's no way TikTok or Twitter can go away because of the network effect. But MySpace went away, and Friendster went away, and Facebook, basically Meta, the company, obviously still here, but Facebook usage has gone way, way, way down. And so, in fact, the only thing I do know is that eventually TikTok will be no more, and Twitter will be no more. So it's really just a matter of time, right? The world changes, the world evolves. People would have said in the 1990s that Blockbuster is never going away, but we all know what happened. And so I think for me, it's been really exciting to be on the cutting edge, as you mentioned. But I don't take anything for granted in terms of the longevity of things, because as technology continues to evolve, the rate of acceleration continues to go up and up and up. So things are changing even faster than ever before, which is both very exciting and also very scary and overwhelming for a lot of folks.
I want to follow up though, Dave. I mean, do you think the way social media is today? I'm old enough to know what MySpace is, Friendster, Facebook, and this iteration. Do you think social media has gotten to a point where everyone has a cell phone, everyone's consuming so much media, whether it's YouTube or one of these social apps to connect with other people? Has it changed our society where we have shorter tempers? People are getting violent. We have a pandemic. can you connect some of this together? Because I feel as if a lot of folks got stuck at home for 2 years. We have, some people had the fortunate ability to work from home, and other folks had to be there on the job in PPE, fighting for their lives, potentially getting infected by coronavirus. I mean, it's been a really trying time for our society. I mean, has social media played a role in where we are right now?
Sure. Well, the way I would connect it, and I'll sort of talk about the emergence of another big social network, Be Real. The way I will connect it is that with social media, people see highlight reel. So people see people's best moments. That's what they're sharing on Instagram and TikTok, previously Facebook and other social networks. You're seeing a collection of highlight reels. And if you're watching a highlight reel, whether you're a teenager, which there's been a lot in the media about, or frankly an adult, you're always comparing yourself and your life to the very, very best moments from other people's lives. Well, imagine if you're having a tough day, tough month, tough year, tough few years, in terms of the pandemic. You got laid off. Your husband or wife also maybe lost their job. You had to downsize. There are many, many ways that people have been impacted very negatively in the last few years. Now imagine that every single day, every single time you log in on your phone, you're seeing everyone else's highlight reel. Well, it's no wonder that not only have we dealt with increasing teenage depression and mental health issues and suicide, but adults struggling with crime, with drugs, with lots of what I would call sort of negative impact of the world. And social media has played a role in that because people are comparing their own lives to the highlight reels that are out there. Now, what's interesting about the emergence of Be Real is the idea behind it as a social network is to intentionally not capture people's highlight reel, but capture just a random moment in people's days. And I think there's something really to be said for that. And people it's catching on because people actually don't. There's an element of the rest of social media where people don't like that highlight reel.
Dave, you talked about Be Real. I totally forgot about that platform. I'm still trying to figure out what TikTok is. Okay. So, I'm primarily on Twitter. I think a lot of the elites and news folks, right? The academics, they're still on Twitter. Okay. You've got Gen Z, the millennials, the youngsters, they're on TikTok. I think Instagram is still stable. Like you said, you have Facebook, kind of seen as one of the elder statesmen. Then you've got Be Real, and then you've got a Discord, and you got all these others. What would you say are the three most influential social media platforms right now? I don't even know if that's a fair question or if you even see it that way. How should we be
yeah,
seeing?
I think it's an interesting question. I think the true answer really lies on who's asking the question in terms of influential on whom and for what audience. To your point, a lot of the elites are on Twitter, but how important is that beyond the elites? I think in many ways, and I'm a huge fan of Twitter. I've been on Twitter since the beginning, but in many ways, it's an echo chamber of media and marketers talking to each other. I mean, the question I like to ask when considering the societal impact of a social network and really how influential it is in the moment is, this may seem funny, but is your mom on the network? The answer to the question of is your mom on Twitter is no. No, your mom's not on Twitter. Is your mom on TikTok? Maybe. Actually, is your mom on Instagram? Yes. So based on the mom question, Instagram is the most influential social network. Maybe LinkedIn as well. Certainly, that's where just about every professional is at this point. And don't sleep on LinkedIn. Some people don't consider it a social network, but actually, I'm going to go ahead and say that if I had to answer that in my head, I would say LinkedIn is the most influential, and then
Wow.
Instagram. And TikTok, because those are most likely to pass that mom test.
Interesting, as that being the standard. Okay.
Dave, do you think people are being desensitized to all this violent crime because of social media? Like I think one thing that's happened with political coverage, I do a lot of political coverage. An episode that Jonathan's covering in Seattle, right? And all the stuff that Jonathan does, people see that in Florida. People see that in Texas. People see that in Ohio. And it influences the discourse in those states and vice versa. And it gives talking points to the right and talking points to the left. And then, of course, you're talking about, again, the elites using social to blast the other side because they saw some episode of whatever happened in Alabama or whatever happened in Tennessee and or New York City. And this is how we're kind of shouting at each other at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think people have become desensitized. I don't know how new of an issue it is. I don't think it's an issue that's new in the last couple of years. I think it's gotten worse and worse. And with cable news, we saw the first revolution in sort of the 24/7 cycle of seeing these stories that ended up desensitizing people, and then social media amplified it that much more. And then the only real change in the last couple of years is less cable news because it's already been there, and less social media because it's already been there, and more the impact of the pandemic. Again, frankly, I think it's just created a greater disparity in wealth, and it's a lot of people walking around with a lot of issues, and the mental health crisis is the worst I think it's ever been in my lifetime. So yeah, we've certainly been desensitized. I mean, how could anyone not say we've been desensitized when there are school shootings all the time, for instance, that people don't even bat an eye anymore? I mean, that's just insanity to me, but it's a reality, right? So it's very unfortunate.
Well, Dave, at the end of the day, Kapur and I are news guys, right? So at the end of the day, content is king, but we started off in the TV world. Be real, be honest. When you ask your peers, your colleagues, even yourself, do you still consume news from the television sets? I mean, where do you get most of your news at this point now?
Yeah, so I get a little news from TV, not a lot. I'm getting my news online. I'm getting my news through Twitter, through social, and I'll tell you with 100% certainty that my children, ranging in age from 7 to 20, 7, 15, and 20, they're getting their news from TikTok and YouTube.
Wow.
Absolutely. And so it's an evolution, and so you just have to not be an old fart and fight it as we old folks tend to do, but embrace it and really understand the direction that folks are going in.
So give us some quick insight, right? As we kind of wrap, I want to get a few more questions in, but what you've always been 2-3 steps ahead, right? I mean, that's how you've been essentially relevant in so many ways. People turn to you now for advice. You have been giving people advice for a very long time, but AI, right? And social media. I mean, what are you working on next? Where do you recommend we all need to be, and where do we need to be focusing on before it blows up, right? What do you think is going to happen next?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been in the news quite a bit, and yet I think most people, if I think of, again, the mom test or the my poker club, the 20 guys that I see every Friday night and play cards with, folks do not realize yet the full potential of GPT and the language learning models. ChatGPT being the most sort of famous in the news now, but Google's Bard is right around the corner as a major competitor. And what GPT can do is absolutely revolutionary. I mean, when Elon Musk and other technologists are saying stop the technology, that this is really, really crazy stuff. And I firmly believe I'm building a new company in AI called Kip.ai, and I firmly believe that what we are witnessing and what we will witness in the next 24 months is a revolution equal in impact to the Industrial Revolution and the internet. So anyone that thinks that social media represented a revolution in the way we communicate, I believe that GPT is going to be that much bigger a revolution. Not since the internet have we seen something that will impact the world so much. And it's both very, very exciting as an entrepreneur and as a technologist, and it's very, very scary, of course, as a consumer, because it's the sort of science fiction that we only dreamed about robots taking over the world suddenly seems a lot more realistic now.
Dave, what aspect of AI are you going to be tackling? Because there's so many folks that are trying to, build things to integrate with OpenAI.
Yeah, we're working specifically with enterprise. The speed of acceleration is so absurd that any large organization doesn't have the bandwidth, the ability to be nimble enough to make changes. I mean, we're talking about GPT-4 came out 2 weeks after GPT-3 3.5. We're talking about major evolution and acceleration literally every week. And enterprises have no idea how to handle this. I mean, how could they? How could an organization of thousands of employees or tens of thousands of employees possibly react fast enough to keep up with the changing pace of technology and AI? So for me, what we're doing to help these folks keep up is building cycles of iterative products and consulting and briefing that allows large enterprises to stand a chance. I promise you, timestamp this segment, because 24 months from now, you will see a major reshuffling of the Fortune 500, the largest reshuffling of the Fortune 500 in any 2-year period in the history of the Fortune 500. And it will be based on how quickly large enterprises react and adapt to the changing opportunities and challenges that AI presents. So you think it was a big deal when Blockbuster went under? Watch as the Fortune 500 is completely reshuffled based on who can adapt and react fast and who is slow coming out of the gate.
And Dave, I got to ask you really quick, what do you think this does to the news industry, right? We know that, television stations, legacy media, newspapers, radio, they're still around, but they're still trying to figure out, how do we get relevant online? What do you think this will do to news gathering and even the reporting and consuming?
Well, it's a good question. Like many things, it will be absolutely disrupted. There will be lots of opportunities for cameras, I imagine, to capture news, and for AI to help analyze news, write segments, write aspects. I'll give you an example. As I'm a published author, I've written quite a bit. I can tell ChatGPT to write an article or a book in the voice of Dave Kerpen, and based on my previous writing, it can actually and given an input of a headline, it can actually write the whole thing. And not only is it well written, I'd like to think, but it's actually literally written in my voice. So imagine the impact on news. Same way, write an article. Here's the headline, and write it in this voice. Write it with a slight liberal bias. Write it with a unnoticeable conservative bias. I mean, the implications are dramatic when you think about the opportunity that AI can understand what's out there and essentially create and distribute the news.
Scary stuff, Ravi. Lot to process.
And exciting too. I mean, again, I'm in San Francisco. We're talking about some of the horrific crime out here, but 9 of the top 10 AI startups in this country are in San Francisco, and this place is on fire. And in fact, the South Bay is actually too far. All of it is in San Francisco proper, and all these venture capitalists and people who've done big things over the last 10, 20 years, they're out of touch, and they're heading to San Francisco to see what the kids are doing. And they had like a 5,000 person party talking AI last Friday night. Spontaneous kinds of efforts. So no matter what you say about this place that I live in, San Francisco is going to be leading the charge on AI, and that's why we got to talk about these things. And I'm so glad, Dave, that you're getting in the space because it's massive. And I have a close friend of mine that has been working on AI for 7 years, and we haven't seen anything yet. Like, this is just the start. So
Dave,
it's big things
any
ahead.
final thoughts, man? I know it's super late on the East Coast, so thank you for staying up with us. But any last closing thoughts on your end about just kind of everything we've been talking about this evening?
I think Ravi hit the nail on the head. The world is at one of its scariest and most overwhelming places, but it's also at one of its most exciting places in that I can remember. And I personally like to choose the positive and choose excitement and opportunity. Maybe that's the entrepreneur in me, but I always like to look at opportunities that are out there versus doom and gloom. So yes, a lot of scary things, a lot of very overwhelming things going on. You talked about that in your earlier segment, but also lots of opportunity for improvement in the world and advancement in technology and advancement in knowledge. And I get super excited about those things as well.
Dave Kerpen, Likeable Media co-founder, New York Times bestselling author, and serial entrepreneur. Thank you again for your generosity and your friendship.
And a man who cannot go into retirement at all, right, Dave? Like, you just keep churning out startups.
Keep selling those companies, Dave.
Never. You know, my financial planner said to me, he was doing a model. He said, I need a retirement age for you. And my wife said 55. She wants to retire, in the next 10 years. And I said, no, I don't want to put an age. And he said, no, I need an age for my model. I said, all right, put 120.
All right. Now, and he has the answer for living to 120 as well, ladies and gentlemen. Dave Kerpen, take care.
Thanks.
Good to see you, Dave. Thanks, man.